Welcome to Fairport Harbor West Breakwater Light. This is a lighthouse. It's considered an active aid to navigation. It has a beacon on the top that's run by the United States Coast Guard. It's currently run by solar. There's a solar panel outside that generates enough light and stored in a battery bank upstairs to keep the beacon running. It starts at dusk and goes to dawn every night. It has a set pattern that is 2 seconds on and 3 seconds off. This lighthouse was built in a factory in Buffalo, New York. It was built from about 1922 to about 1923. It was built to take the place of the original Fairport Harbor Lighthouse, which is on land a little bit in the town of Fairport Harbor. It was commissioned by Congress, originally cost $14,000 to build this lighthouse. The old lighthouse at Fairport Harbor functioned from 1825 to 1925. And then they decided they were going to decommission that one, put a new one out here. And when they did that, they wanted to put it a little bit closer for the mariners. So they built the platform that it sits on now. The residents of Fairport Harbor, when that one was decommissioned, Congress was going to tear that one down. But the residents decided they didn't want it torn down, so they were able to save that one and turn that one into a marine museum. This one was put in place and finished out and first lit June 9th, 1925. And it is currently functioning, and so it's been in continuous operation since 1925. There were originally 3 keepers who lived here at the lighthouse from 1925 to about 1948. One keeper was always on duty here, and then other keepers came in and out to help him out. So the original light that we'll see when we go upstairs was run by kerosene, so that's why they need to have a keeper here 24 hours a day. It was then electrified for a number of years and was brought with electricity through the under the water. And then at some point, I've been told that electrical cable was cut, and they then put the solar panel in. And it's probably 1990s type solar technology, fairly early solar technology. 2000, the General Services Administration started to figure out a way to dispose of lighthouses. But many are very historical. This one is on the National Register of Historic Places, which means it's protected from being torn down, and a lot of them also are. So they came up with a scheme that if a community organization is interested, they can acquire the lighthouse. But in this case, because of the old original Fairport Harbor Lighthouse, the community had sort of been through that already with threatening to have that one torn down and saving that one, starting a historical society to take that one over and turn it into a marine museum. So they didn't really have the wherewithal to do it again. So this one came up on the auction block in 2009. So what General Services Administration does is if no community organization steps forward, then they put it up for auction. It's sort of like eBay for government property. This one came up in 2009. Came up for bid, and you had to be a registered bidder, and once you're a registered bidder, you were able to start bidding in the auction. I registered in 2009 and bid that year through the auction, and it had a certain financial level that I was comfortable with, and when it reached that level, I dropped out. That year, another gentleman won the auction. He was a local developer. He won the auction. And what happens after the winner is declared is that they have to come to a contractual agreement with the Army Corps of Engineers. So the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers owns the land that the lighthouse sits on, or basically what I call the platform, this bed of rock here. They also own the break wall on both the north and the south sides and maintain those. So you had to come to an agreement because I have a lease with the Army Corps of Engineers. So it's like having a cabin in a national forest. You don't own the land per se, you own the structure. So I own the structure here. In 2009, the gentleman who won that auction As I said, he was a developer in town, and he wanted to develop this into something. Some people have told me a floating restaurant or an amusement park or something. And the Army Corps of Engineers didn't want him to do that. So he then defaulted on the purchase. And in that year, the General Services Administration didn't have a backup plan for what happened. So they put the property back up for auction in 2010. 2010, another gentleman bought it. He was out of Texas. And then soon thereafter, he also defaulted. So the General Services Administration realized at that point that they weren't accomplishing what they were trying to accomplish by divesting of the property, and they changed some of their guidelines. In 2011, they made two major changes. One was that if the primary purchaser or the winner of the auction defaulted, then the second person in line would have the first right of refusal to then purchase the property. So they did that. They also notified everybody who'd ever bid on it that it was coming back up for auction again. So those two things, I got a notification that it was coming back up. I had not purchased anything else at that point, so I decided to bid on it again. So in 2011, I bid on it for my second time, the third auction, and again, it went to a certain level and I dropped out. Same thing, someone else bought it, and subsequent to that, the General Services Administration contacted me and said, we think this person who won is going to default, but now you are the second in line, and so stand by. So in August of 2011, they got back in touch with me and they said, yes, that purchaser defaulted, you're the second in line, do you want it? So I said yes, and so in August of 2011, I started the paperwork to acquire it and went through all the paperwork I needed to do and got my lease with the Army Corps of Engineers, and I became the official owner on November 1st of 2011, so 11/1/11. Okay, we're now in the basement of the lighthouse. The lighthouse has 5 floors, and this is the lowest level that we're in. We're not below water, some people think we are, but we're in the platform itself. Now, I do not have running water or electricity from the land. I'm completely off the grid and self-sustaining, although I currently don't have running water, so I'm still working on that. But a lot of people want to know what the lighthouse keepers did when they lived here. So what they did when they lived here is they actually brought water in through this pipe underneath here from the lake. They would have brought that in, pumped it in somehow, and they would have stored it up in this room here, which is the cistern. So that would have held the water, would have held it all winter long, and then somehow they pumped it back upstairs to where the bathroom is. In addition, they got heat by having a coal boiler, and the coal boiler was probably in this room. This trap door up here is where the coal was brought in. It was brought in upstairs on the upper level, and then these doors were open, and they would have dumped it down into here, and so they would have used it to heat the lighthouse and also generate power. Many people ask me what the life of the lighthouse keepers were like when they lived here. There were 3 different lighthouse keepers who lived here between 1925 and 1948. Other lighthouse keepers came and went, different assistant keepers, while the 3 were in charge. But there were 3 in charge sequentially from that time period. They would have lived up here on this level. This was kind of like an apartment to them. What we're standing in right now is what would have been their office living room area. They would have written reports, had their communication, that sort of thing here. Obviously there wasn't much technology back then, so they would have done some reading and some writing and some other kinds of work that way. As far as the restoration goes, these are the original hardwood floors. These were able to be salvaged, stripped down, recovered. However, the compass is not original. I put the compass in when I redid the floors. There was a bit of damage here in the middle, and I really wanted to put a focal point in, so I was able to put this compass in. It does point due north, so it's a little askew, but it is due north here. A lot of people ask me about the brick and the plaster. The brick and the plaster were basically how I found it. A lot of the plaster had fallen off the walls, so I left it as it was and just sealed up the brick, and we're able to keep that as a design element here. They did have a bathroom. The bathroom is obviously under construction at the moment, but they did have a bathroom that they brought the water from the basement and somehow all the way up to the bathroom and then downstairs. The other element up here that's of interest are these windows. When I got the lighthouse, all of the windows up here were beyond repair except for one. There's only one original window, and it's that one over there. That window was able to be renovated, and we were able to salvage that one, and that is an original window. The rest of them were not. So the rest of them had to be custom made. One of the things about the lighthouse being on the National Register of Historic Places is that you have to follow historic guidelines. And the main historic guideline I had to follow was these replacement windows. They had to be double hung to match the originals. They had to be wood. They couldn't be vinyl. And so they were custom made for me by a company out of Oregon, Gelwin, that does have a lighthouse initiative. And they have one lighthouse that they work on their doors and windows every year. This wasn't it, but they were able to give me some consulting advice on the kinds of windows that would be best for our lighthouse. For when the lighthouse keepers lived here, they lived upstairs as an apartment. We just saw the living room, office area. This was the bedroom area. And when I found it, it was also this color green. So I was able to match this color and keep it as I had originally found it. And then these floors were also restored. These are original floors. So when the lighthouse keepers lived here, as I mentioned, they lived up here as an apartment. The room that we're in now served as her kitchen. And the reason I know that is for a couple of things. One is, we already talked about the living room, office area, the bathroom, and the bedroom that they slept in. There are a couple of things in here that tipped me off to this being the kitchen. One is, behind this armoire is an outline of a cast iron sink. The other thing is, that's the chimney area there, and that circle up at the top is probably where the stove would have vented out, so they would have cooked there. In addition, this small room here has lines that you can see that were likely where there were shelves, and that would have served as the pantry. So they would have stored their food there, probably cooked, and maybe had a small table, whatever, as an eating kitchen here. This level that we're on is called the service level. The reason it was called the service level is because when the light was originally kerosene fed, the keepers would have to take the light down, clean it, refuel it, and put it back up. So it was a very laborious task. So they would just bring it to this level, service the light, and put it back in here. One interesting thing about this lighthouse is that it is an active aid to navigation. It's currently functioning, and the light is tended by the U.S. Coast Guard. They have equipment here that's run by solar that tends that beacon. And I also have a National Weather Service weather station, which is on the roof. That's also run by solar, and this is their equipment here, the NOAA equipment. We're now on the top of the lighthouse. It has this widow's walk that you can walk all the way around. It's also where the beacon is housed here. There is also a functioning foghorn on the north side. So the lighthouse faces north this way, so obviously southeast and west. And there is an additional National Weather Service weather station up at the top, and what that does is it measures wind speed, wind direction, temperature in real time. You can go on my website, the Lighthouse's website, or you can go on NOAA.gov and you can check this weather station is FAI01 for Fairport 01. That's the number of it, and you can see what the wind is and the temperature and the wind speed is doing at any given